internet! I'm HamsterBomb.
And I'm Matt.
And this is HITBOX. This is our new side series show that we're doing on YouTube as well as podcasts. And we're going to be talking about all things video games. Matt, do you like video games?
Of course I like video games.
I like video games. I like talking about video games. So I want to make a show where we just talk about video games. I actually brought this up to the audience on our Discord page and saying, like, who could I be on here with to talk to? And unanimously, it was just you, like, all in favor. So you have an underground crowd of followers.
That's because I bring the chaos element.
So anyway, for this starting episode, we wanted to talk about something that was kind of like a big topic that both of us know a lot about and have some opinions on. And we kind of wanted to dive into shiny Pokemon. Matt, what the heck happened to shiny Pokemon? Should we explain what they are first? Yeah, Game Freak happened. You know, there's a lot to unpack
you ask me
in
any
that
question
joke.
for Pokemon, and it will always be Game Freak happened.
You're right. Well, and there's a lot to unpack there. We have spoken in the past on other shows and videos about what we feel about Game Freak and their current actions. But regardless of how you feel about the new games, there is certainly something changing in Pokemon games with shiny Pokemon. And if you obviously don't know what they are, I want to make sure that we do cover. It's basically just an alternately colored Pokemon. They're not stronger than any others. So even if you're playing Pokemon Go, it is just the same thing. It's just different colors. Though when we get to Gen 8, something weird does come up, but
well, even in Gen 2, it meant they had close to perfect stats, so at least back then, if you found a shiny, it meant, oh, this is going to be a good Pokemon.
That is true, yeah, for the most part. That's actually how they were generating what shiny Pokemon were determined based on. It was stats. There wasn't really anything else to go by back in those games. I mean, we're talking about the Game Boy Color, and at that time, they wanted to showcase the Game Boy Color's capabilities by showing that this Pokemon doesn't look like the other ones. It's special, but they wanted to make sure you saw it, so they got these sparkles that go everywhere, and hence the fan term shiny Pokemon came out. Now, based on just randomly getting a Pokemon that has stats that line up with that, it gave us this arbitrary odds number of 1 out of 8,192.
That number became our gospel.
Yeah, it basically did. But boy, is that rare. Like, can we just stop and, like, kind of appreciate how rare that is? Do you have any, or did you ever find any Gen 2 shiny Pokemon?
My unknown.
Yeah, an unknown.
Unknown H.
It was an H?
It was an H.
Okay, yeah.
That's what happened. He's still trapped in the cartridge.
Yeah, okay, I was remembering which, because I remember, this is a fun fact, because of the stat thing for shinies back in those days. It's possible that certain Pokemon, it is not possible for certain Pokemon to become shinies. And I know there are some unknown letters that cannot be shiny. Because I thought it was a G or something, or the H or the G. One of the, anyway, but because I remember I had an unknown shiny as well. I could have sworn I did. I know for sure that I ran into a shiny Pidgey, Hoot, and Slowpoke all before the Red Gyarados. And I didn't even know that they were different colors because Game Boy Color, that sucker's not backlit very well, like, at all. And it's really hard to identify colors, especially those subtle ones, until you get to a Red Gyarados and it's obvious, but
well, even back in the day, you saw the Red Gyarados, you didn't know it was a shiny, you're just like, oh, cool, Red Gyarados.
Yeah, I know, and honestly, like, just not even going any farther than this, that's really cool, you know? Like, it's some stupid little nothing change. Like, nothing actually changed with the Pokemon, but it suddenly makes them exciting and different, you know, because the Red Gyarados in that game, everyone gets that one, and it's special. It's special because it's the one different one, you know, and I have no idea how many people, what the odds are of people who were playing through the game and added that Red Gyarados to their team purely because it looked different than the other Gyarados. And, you know, it sparkles when it comes out. It's just cool. So I do really like the idea. Obviously, I mean, I've shiny hunted a lot, but things do change over time, and it's not just like growing out of Pokemon, because I know a lot of people are probably going to accuse us of that. I still love Pokemon, the media franchise, and I would think you would say the same thing, even still. Is that true?
Oh yeah, I still love it. It's just now it kind of frustrates me and disappoints me.
Yeah, and that's in other ways, and it's sometimes it's more so the mainline games, and that's a discussion for another time. But like, I mean, the characters, the Pokemon, like, I mean, if somebody sent me like a pack of like Pokemon cards, I am not going to be like, oh man, I don't like Pokemon. Even if it's like the brand new ones, you know, the Sword and Shield Pokemon, I am still gonna be like, oh, I don't have any of these. That'd be really cool. You know, that is not it at all.
I stand by Pokemon for me is like when you're disappointed in your kid, where it's like, I love you, but I'm disappointed.
Yeah, I know you can do better than this. Yeah, exactly. Right. You gotta stop hanging out with the wrong crowd. Anyway, getting back to Pokemon Shinies as they evolved over time, because I want to go through this over time and kind of see what happened, because something clearly changed, because you could play new Pokemon games today or play Pokemon Go, and I'm sorry, you are not going to be finding Pokemon anywhere close to as rare as 1 out of 8,192. Even if you found a random Pokemon in Go that was not event-based, it's not a community day or anything, or you're just running around in Sword and Shield and you don't have any of the shiny charm business that we'll get into. You're not doing any crazy methods. You just ran into it. Very beginning. There you go, shiny. That is not even close to 8192. So there's something that is definitely changing over time. And I kind of want to see what's changing, what they changed, and try and figure out why. Because each time, I think they were trying to encourage different methods of behavior. If you agree with that, Matt? It's almost like they wanted to make shiny Pokemon more valuable so more people could see them, but maybe I'm getting ahead of myself. By doing that, they accidentally devalued them so that nobody really cares anymore.
Well, yeah, and it also depends on the game, too. Like, Go, I give a little bit of lenience, because you trying to do an encounter rate in Go is a lot less than what you can do in a game.
That's true, yes. Unless you're, playing it the way you're supposed to, out in the wild and running around and clicking on Pokemon. But even still, that is not nearly as fast as what you can do in a game, obviously.
Right.
And since everyone's been quarantined for about a year, that's not really possible. So anyway, let's move on. So they said where they're introduced in Gen 2, but moving on to Gen 3, we could not trade between those generations. So that was kind of a bit of a disappointing trade lock for a lot of us who had a lot of cool Pokemon. I've told this story too many times, I don't want to tell it again, how I actually got my cartridges lost and destroyed of the original games, and I did have shinies on them. So it kind of felt like a fresh start for me in Gen 3, so it didn't hurt as bad. I already knew that my stuff was gone. But still, pretty much everybody had to start fresh, and the odds remained the same.
I think I got my shiny unknown actually in Soul Silver.
Oh, is that? Oh, really? Okay, yeah. See,
because I remember the one time when I didn't really care about it, and you were telling me about it one time. I was over at your house.
Yeah.
And you were telling me about it, and I was in the forest, and I ran into a shiny Weedle, and I just turned my DS around and went like this.
That was hilarious. Yeah, I was. You know what? That was funny. I remember that. I remember that was one of the first. I think I was doing my first hunt for shiny Charmander at the time, and we were just talking about it. Or I was talking about trying to set up Pokemon Q-Charm for the first time, and as I'm talking to Matt about shinies, and we're discussing this, because honestly, and this is so weird to explain to the younger generation, being this rare, 8192, most players went through their games, even playing multiple files, and had no idea what they were, and never saw them. And you probably would never see them. And we had to actually talk about it. And some people, I remember, some people I would talk to, and friends of mine would be like, no, that's not real. That's totally not real.
It was back in the day when it could be considered a playground myth.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's a Mew under the truck that's hidden on the side of, was it Vermilion City?
That one's true. I don't know why you're bringing that up. That one's 100% true. You can also catch Mew 3.
Oh my... Yeah, right. Well, that kind of stuff, like, it just grew out there, and shiny Pokemon sounded exactly like that. Though the one weird one that ended up being true was the one where, like, you could, like, talk to this one kid on this one route, fly to this other area, or, like, oh yeah, and then, like, God, what did you have to do? And then, like, you did a bunch of really weird, obscure things in the first game, and you encounter Mew, but it works. It's hilarious, and each time I play that game, I inevitably do the weird glitch to encounter Mew and add it to my team, just because it's fun. we're getting off topic, but I'm sure it's just gonna happen with this show, just because we both love talking about games, and this is, like I said, I want to make sure that people understand we still love Pokemon. We still love Pokemon, games, but
let's get to the core issue where I think, would you say it was probably about Gen 4, shinies started going down?
You know what? I think so, but a couple things that did change before then. In Pokemon Emerald, we got the Masuda method, which doubled your odds for getting a shiny Pokemon, which now, let's see why. They added this method if you were breeding a Pokemon with one that was from a foreign cartridge, which in Emerald was really, really hard to do.
Let's clarify and say that the GTS wasn't really a thing.
It wasn't a thing, basically. So when you moved on to Gen 4, then we had online interaction. Then all of a sudden, that Masuda method was kind of possible, but it had an increased odds from what was double odds, which was 4,096, all the way up to 1 out of 1638. And that was...
It's still hard, because that was still hatching. You gotta remember, that wasn't encounters, that was you had to get the egg and hatch it.
And also remember, you could be hatching Magikarps, which you can pop those eggs open faster, versus, a Dratini, which will take you a long time, or a Lapras.
Refresh my memory here.
Mm-hmm.
Was Flame Body a thing back then?
Abilities did start in Gen 3, and I think they did affect hatching even back then.
Right.
So I believe so, yes.
But even still,
that's right. And
actually finding a route to bike?
Exactly. I actually did my Masuda method, and if we're jumping ahead a little bit, it actually decreased again in Gen 5. And it went down to 1 out of 1365. And I was hatching for my shiny Charmander in that game. That was my first intentional shiny hunt, though I found shinies before then. This is the first one I did on purpose. And I got darn close to that number, too. I was getting really depressed with my poor luck, but I did find it.
That's because even hatching, I will give, people look at the low thing of oh, it's only a little over 1,000. It's yeah, but that's eggs, not encounters.
Exactly. Right.
Difficult.
Exactly. And what I kind of felt like at the time was they were trying to perfect how close that time, or those odds needed to be to reflect running in the wild. Because you could go out in the grass and get encounter. You find something, you run. You find something, you run. And you could find maybe 10 Pokemon by the time it takes for you to just get one egg to appear at the daycare center, and then maybe another 10 or 15 before you can even hatch the one. So
then even after you hatch it, you have to empty them into the box. So
exactly.
You got more room for
and then you got to release them. It's an ordeal. So I do honestly appreciate those numbers, and I kind of feel like it was at a happy medium at the 1365. But there was still another method, big thing that happened in Gen 4 that we're kind of passing over, and that was the Poke Radar. This was the first time they intentionally programmed some mechanic into the game in order to help players find shiny Pokemon, because very simply, this mechanic would allow you to kind of chain Pokemon one after another, find the same ones, fight them over and over, and you would actually see grass patches rustling, and eventually, once you get the chain high enough, you could actually see that the patch itself is shining. There's sparkles in it, so you would already know that there's a shiny Pokemon guaranteed in that patch, and they started to program that. Yeah.
Right, but here's the kicker. What are your max odds?
Your max odds in that, yes, are... say you're at a chain of 40, which, by the way, is when it maxes out, you have the odds of 1 out of 200 shining. Now, 4 patches will shake at a time, so if you add it up like that, you technically have, you multiply, you got 4 times, so it's more like 1 out of 50 for each one.
Right, but I just want to make it clear for the younger viewers that back then, that chaining had so many rules.
Exactly, it was nuts. It wasn't nuts.
Like new chaining. It was nothing like new chaining or chain fitting. There were so many rules. You had to be on a certain row in a certain corner, and you don't do corners. You want to make sure it's in the center.
Exactly. And you know what's funny? Because a lot of people have gotten back to me and talked about this, a lot of the rules that we believed in our generation have been debunked and are just... they mean nothing.
Well,
And
some of the things we did for safety, like never do it on a corner.
Yes,
that was more
like-
of a safety concern rather
yes,
than.
but
okay, this
also
is-
like and this is gonna sound technical, but people who know what I'm talking about will know this. Like, don't accept a 4-4. You want a 4-3, 4-2, 4-1, or then do not take a 4-0. And like, I know that sounded like nonsense, but for people who've done that and know that that
They
is
know
not
what we're talking
true,
about.
it's just dumb. But anyway, it's clearly something that was skill based, and I don't know how I feel about that. It was also luck based. It was largely luck based still, but still it was predominantly varied by your own skill.
Right, but even still, it was one of those, like, it gets to the point of what I feel like with Shiny, where once you got it, it felt like it was worth it.
Right, and it was
so frustrating. You had so many retries
God, it was
and
so
so
hard.
many problems.
And the difference between this and say like soft resetting for a shiny in pretty much any game is almost the same. Soft resetting has for the most part stayed the same, because even in later games it is not going to track how many times you've seen them, because the later games kind of have like a bit of a pity system we'll get into later. But yeah, but the more you like keep soft resetting, you could get into, and I have before gotten way over odds, and it feels so bad because as you're soft resetting for the 10,000th time, you are nowhere closer to your goal than you were on the very first reset, and that just sucks. But when you do it with this Poke Radar thing and you get to chain of 40, you know any minute now, and you are on the edge of your seat, and it's honestly, it is a lot of fun. So it's something totally different, and I can appreciate that.
Well,
but
it comes down to the frame too of the word challenging.
Yeah, because it was really tough, because the thing was, the game did not teach you the rules of Poke Radar, if we did not make that clear. That's why, like, all these years later, people had to get into the game files and figure out how it actually functioned to find out this is how it worked. We really were just doing trial and error, and that's why we had some bogus rules that we believed were true, because no one was honestly going to try and prove it wrong, because if you did, you were sacrificing all that time and effort that you were using to try and find the shinies that you were after. Which was another thing that was really cool about chaining. You could, for the most part, like, kind of gear who you were hunting for.
And I forgot the other difficult part thing of chaining. Are you sure that grass was the one shaking the hardest?
Oh my god! Yeah,
Are you sure?
Man, the DS screen was not good enough to tell. You had to differentiate different types of grass shaking, and oh my gosh, my eyes during the snowfield areas.
Oh, me trying to get that shiny Frostlass.
God, my shiny Absol. That was so bad. I actually random encounter 1 out of 8 at 8192 found a wild shiny Absol before I actually got the chain to work, which is sad. That's how hard it was. But still.
Let's get to the gen that kinda, you may agree with me, kinda started ruining it.
I think I already know what you're gonna talk about.
Let's talk about Gen 6.
Oh, really? You are skipping one big thing.
I am.
Okay.
But here's the thing about what we're going to talk about.
Oh,
It's still difficult
right. I
to
know what
get.
you mean. I know what you mean.
Yeah, it's still a difficult thing to get in black and white.
Right. Well, okay, so let's talk about it. The shiny charm. So, up to this point, we are still in 8192 territory. But at this point, and honestly, I like the idea of the shiny charm. Just gonna say it.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea.
Hard to get. It was originally really hard to get.
And it gets harder each game. The idea is when you complete your Pokedex, I believe the professor in each game will reward you with the shiny charm, which I always thought they should have given you something, for doing that, some reason to keep playing the game, and the shiny charm is perfect. It basically doubles all shiny chances, which is a great incentive to finish the Pokedex and keep playing for DLC missions, right? So it's like free, it's like free DLC is what it feels like. It's like you have a whole new way to play your old game, when really it's the same thing, but they just make you feel like, oh man, but I'm luckier now. I want to go back in this area and try and find, let me see, like Gen 5, I was like, I was going for like the shiny Metang that you can magnet pull out of the area, and that's like a totally different way to see old environments, and that's really cool. Right, but some big thing did happen in Gen 6, and I'm going to let you talk about it. I just wanted to establish
several big things.
Shiny Charm did happen in 5. It's technically Black 2, White 2.
Right, and let's talk, one more thing about that is people got to remember that was the national dex you had to complete.
Yes, the national dex. You had to complete
the national dex in order to get the charm.
That is an ordeal.
Which means you need to go on GTS and try and convince people to give you their legendaries.
Yes, or be playing from Gen 3 and transferring those bad boys up one at a time, which is, I believe, what both of us did for the longest time.
No, that's not what we did.
Really? What? I still have Pokemon from Gen 3. I do.
That's not what we did.
What?
Because I specifically remembered having to do one thing with my game.
Yeah?
And it involves that stupid monkey.
Oh my god, yeah. Oh.
I had to... In order for you to get the charm, I sacrificed my game to get a Chimchar. And we had to get freaking Chimchar into your game.
Right, because everybody online like put their Chimchar up and was asking for like Zekrom, Reshiram, Thundurus. You know, it's every one of them was asking for a legendary. And we're like, I can't do no. And God, so yes, Matt's...
Oh god, now I'm mad about Chimchar.
I know, Matt's 4th gen game had to die in order for the shiny charm for our games to happen. But anyway.
But it was worth it because I did like playing that game.
So there were a lot there were a lot of huge things in Gen 6, and notably, mostly, Pokemon were suddenly in 3D. It was like this big new thing. It looked wildly different. I feel like it got a big new audience, though sales-wise, you know, all things considered, it didn't quite hit as hard as it was supposed to. But still, shiny-wise... There was one huge thing they did. And I don't know, I don't think I like it. Matt?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
They took our odds and divided it by 2.
Yep, they straight up divided those odds by 2. Now, to be fair, the number for those odds, as we mentioned before, was completely an arbitrary number based on just the stats generated from a Game Boy game. So... I know the number was arbitrary, but we got used to that number. You know, that number was borderline hopeless, and that's what made it feel so good to find a shiny. You know, it meant something. You know, back then. You get an 80... I still kind of wish there was some way that the Pokemon games could, like, identify the odds at which that shiny was acquired. You know, like how we've got the little markers... and the little symbols that show you which generation they're from. If there was some way to, like, show this is an 8192 Weedle versus, I found this Kakuna in the Principari or something like that, if he's even there. Probably not.
We'll talk about the Principari in a minute, but
you're right. Oh, God, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself.
Right. The thing people need to understand, 4096 is still a high number.
It is.
But that's not the problem. If it would have just been 4096, that's completely different. Like, that's still a relatively high number.
It is.
The problem is with the multiplier.
Exactly. Things start multiplying out, and the shiny charm returns. And from what I understand, the shiny charm has been in every single Pokemon game since then. It may not have... Well, it's not in Pokemon Go. And it might not have been in Let's Go. I don't know for sure if it was in Let's Go.
I think it's in Let's Go.
Is it? It might be. I never... I don't think... Even though that's probably the easiest one to get it in, I never did it for that game. That game's a whole other can of worms. Maybe we'll talk about that some other episode. But yeah, for now, the shiny charm did come back in Gen 6. And that starts really adding up. So just for example, your wild encounter rates... if you have a shiny charm in Gen 6, are 1 out of 1365. Does that number sound familiar? That's your hatch rates in Gen 5 with Masuda method, which, remember, required you to get a Japanese Ditto, and this is just 1 gen back.
Yep.
In 1 generation, like, that's insane how much of a jump that was.
But that's not all. Let's add another multiplier.
I know, it keeps going. So one weird thing was we got the Poke Radar coming back in this game, but I don't know about you, but I could not get that thing working nearly as well as I could in Gen 4. Maybe...
I actually stupidly had an easier time with it.
Is that so?
I think it was just because it was easier to see the grass now, because it was in 3D.
Oh, really? I had issues where I couldn't see the grass because it was, like, off the camera sometimes, because, you know, like, it's 3D, and they could move the angles and stuff. But, you know, it is a skill-based thing, and I, like, really jived with the old pixel art version of it, and Matt, I know you'd actually changed quite a lot of stuff. I think I only successfully chained 1 shiny ever doing this method.
I changed, like, my, I changed my Roselia, I changed my Toxicroak.
Yeah,
I changed a lot of things.
Wow, I just couldn't do it. I think I remember you even trying to teach me how to do it, and I just could not do it. So yeah, the Poke Radar was back, which, by the way, I believe it has not returned since Gen 6. The Masuda method odds, oh my god, increased drastically. So Masuda method odds in this game went to 1 out of 683. And this is now the first time you can get a shiny odds in the hundreds.
Well, hang on. Mm-hmm. That's without the charm.
That's without the charm. With shiny charm, that is actually 1 out of 512. That's crazy. Like, I could actually fill up, I think you can, I don't remember how many Pokemon you can fit in your boxes at once before you have to forcefully start releasing them, but that's crazy. Like, you know, you can actually get like 1, maybe even 2 before you gotta start releasing them.
So at this point, it is more lucrative to go on GTS, get a Japanese Ditto, than it is to do anything else.
Yes. You know, it's another...
Even without the charm, which, remember, to get the charm, you gotta complete the national dex.
You do.
You can say, forget the charm, I'll take that extra 100 or so odds.
And, you know, another, probably a topic for another time if you guys want to hear about it, we really need to talk about fake Pokemon, because I think this is the generation when it got bad, because this is also when they gave us the Wonder Trading ability, and my god, fake Pokemon everywhere, fake shinies everywhere is where this is relevant and turning into this. So we're not even going to dig into that today.
That's a whole nother episode.
That is a whole other episode. So shelving all of that, there was also this really weird method they introduced called consecutive fishing, where basically you just fish a bunch of times and keep killing the same, or whatever appears, and as long as you don't fail the reel, which actually got challenging, so technically a skill-based one too. I mean, I kind of appreciate that.
I'm okay with chain fishing. Like, if they introduced that earlier, I would have been fine with it.
Yeah, maybe, but I mean, to be fair though, those odds got really busted easy to find shinies.
But also, it's like, there's... How many Pokemon are going to be
exactly? There's not many that you could fish out of there, so it really felt kind of fair. It was kind of disappointing that you couldn't do, you know, methods like that elsewhere, but I mean, what more could they do? Oh god, Gen 8's coming, so...
Well, so Friend Safari is still at the 512 odds, so same as Masuda method with a shiny charm.
With shiny charm, so that's actually basically saying, like, the Friend Safari was, you know, the more friends you have in that game, you have more safaris, and look it up, it's a thing. And basically, yeah, you'd get 3 different Pokemon out of there, which honestly I thought was awesome, because now that limits your pool of what you're aiming for. So like, say my Friend Safari has a shiny Pikachu potential, right? But you could also get an Electrode or a Manectric, but you don't want those, right? You want the Pikachu, right, for example. Or maybe you want the Mega Manectric or something, right? So now you're in my shiny, you're in my Safari running around at the 1 out of 512 odds, which was your maxed out chances. That's the best you could get in this game with the shiny charm doing Masuda method, and those were eggs. These are wild encounters.
But I'm gonna play devil's advocate and say I was fine with the Friend Safari because it introduced a lot of things. Like, I remember going on Reddit, and there's a subreddit just solely devoted
dude, I was there too,
finding friend codes and stuff. And it's like,
I love that.
Fun.
Yes, I agree. Like, it was so fun.
Even once you got the Friend Safari, it still wasn't that easy. You still had to find the one you wanted. I mean, how many shiny Pampors did you run into? Right,
and it was really tough, like, trying to find, like, you know, get enough friends so you find someone's like, oh, this guy's got a shiny Wartortle. You're like, oh, take a look at my Safari. Like, I'd be like, oh, mine's got the Pikachu, right?
And don't forget it. You only had the 2 until your friend beat the Elite Four, and then it unlocked the 3rd.
I think they had to go online at the same time as you. I could be wrong, but I think maybe the Elite Four was also a requirement, but they had to be online with you at the same time, which was really tough to get. Yes, because there was a lot of them where you actually were looking for the Pokemon in that 3rd slot, and you couldn't get them because you couldn't get that person to go online with you. And boy, did that stink, because there was a lot of really big ones I was trying to aim for there. But still, one thing I also want to give
it a pass.
Yeah, another thing I want to give it a pass for is these odds are completely unaffected by the shiny charm. I do respect that, because that, on top of a 512 odds, would have been bonkers.
Beyond bonkers.
Beyond well, I mean, it's gonna get worse later as we keep going. I say worse, and that's kind of the topic of the episode. I don't know, is this worse, Matt, the fact that these odds are increasing? Because what they're doing so far, up to this point through Gen 6, is they're trying to incentivize us to do certain things. Like, Friend Safari, they're trying to incentivize people to make friends online. That's great. I think that's a great idea, and it totally worked.
But after that, that's no longer a thing.
Right, and it also did devalue those Pokemon. So say, for example, in Gen 4, you used Masuda method to hatch a shiny Charmander, right? Or Bulbasaur, whatever. And you play far enough, and now you're in Gen 6, you transfer this thing up, it's a Venusaur, you love it, it can Mega Evolve now. Well, it turns out in the Friend Safari that your friend has, they have Ivysaurs in there, and you just stumble across shiny Ivysaurs, and you feel bad. That doesn't feel good, that feels bad. Finding shinies that you worked so hard for this other one, but this one just doesn't feel special. And that's, I think, the big discrepancy. There's some shinies that just don't feel special. Like, if we've played Pokemon Go on a community day, and I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, you'll end up with maybe even a dozen of the same type of shiny, and are they all really that special? I mean, I'm one of those who won't get rid of any of them, but I still, like, I don't know how I feel about it. There's something that is, like, degrading slowly as we go through these, where they just don't feel like they have that value anymore, where, I don't know.
They don't feel special anymore.
Yeah, and maybe...
Like, you may love the Pokemon, but it's not special. Like, you worked, God, months, almost years on getting Shiny Ho-Oh.
Yeah.
And then, like, a year later, they released Shiny Lugia and Shiny Ho-Oh as an event. DLC event at GameStop.
Yep, I know. And you know what? I didn't care, because I got mine. And that's something that's kind of different, because a lot of this is, I feel like, the quest and the journey to figure out how you're going to get them, and especially those old ones, because you needed a plan. And but the new ones, it's almost like you don't need a plan. You're just like, oh man, I'm kind of feeling like getting a shiny Quagsire. Well, I know I can get him through this method real easy, so I do.
It also comes down to this: you show off your shiny Ho-Oh, nobody's gonna care. It's not special.
It's only special to me. And that, I feel like, that's not right. There is something that they did introduce in Gen 8 that kind of gives me hope that in the future they might change something. So let's kind of keep going. I know that's weird. You'll probably never hear me say something in Gen 8 gives me hope. But we will get there, I promise. So if we go down to Gen 7, I know there was a lot of stuff they added in Gen 6. In Gen 7, it keeps the doubled odds, and for here on, that is just a thing that's going to stay. Your normal native odds are 1 out of 4096, unless they change that in Gen 9. So they have introduced SOS chaining, which is this really weird method of, like, allies calling, or, like, there's multiple Pokemon in a group, and one calls for another one for help, and the more you keep having them do that, eventually your shiny odds go up. It's kind of complicated and weird, but
it's weird, but it's fun.
It is. I gotta agree. It is really fun. It's also skill based. You have to plan ahead. You need to figure out how your moves are gonna work. Like, how are you gonna have enough, PP in order to get through all the attacks, because you might be doing this for hours. And it's actually, it is. I agree. It's a lot of fun trying to figure out, like, especially like the Marini hunt, because that was one where you had to figure out, how do I specifically get lots of Marinis versus, trying to get the Corsolas, which you could, and I did find lots of, as opposed to finding the Marini. But still, like, your odds, max odds for doing that are 1 out of 1024. With Shiny Charm, it goes to 1 out of 683. So it's still not beating the last game's Friend Safari or Masuda method, but I still think it's a really worthy method. And that's after 70 allies called. Matt, I heard you have something to say.
Yeah. Ahead, we forgot something.
What's that?
We forgot about horde hunting.
Horde hunting. Oh, yeah. That's...
that was a multiplier.
I don't believe it actually multiplied out, but the fact that you are getting 5 encounters at once, in Gen 6, by the way, you're getting 5 encounters at once, that really did make you find shinies very quick.
Very quick. I found a shiny Sandshrew in, like, 25 encounters.
Yeah, well, wow. I did the Sandshrew hunt as well. I don't know how quick I found mine, but yeah, I was finding shinies left and right with that method. And honestly, just like the consecutive fishing one, this was something where I was like, I'm just going to go around in different areas and try and find all the shinies that I can with this method, because it seems so much easier than doing it in the old games. And I get that as, like, a game developer, you want your new game to be the one that has all the value. Like, oh, well, if you're a shiny hunter, you want this one because this is the one where you can get this Pokemon real easy versus those old games where the odds are higher. I get that, but man, it's almost like in card games, power creep. It is a slippery slope. And I got a feeling that's kind of what Pokemon has been doing lately. But still. Anyway, we were in Gen 7, correct?
Yes.
So yeah,
7,
calling allies. There is also a really big one in the Ultra games, wormhole hunting. Honestly, this is where...
That one makes me mad.
This is the one where me, as a shiny hunter, kind of drew the line and said, I just can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
This is something that... This is pushing it. This is a little too far. Because this is now, suddenly, you can increase... It's really complicated how it works. Look up wormhole shiny hunting if you want to see all the deets, but we don't have time to dig into it. But basically, long story short, you can increase your shiny chances to... we're not using 1 out of numbers anymore. We're using percents. You can increase it to 1% all the way up to 36%. Shiny chances. That's bonkers! Now, and this, to be fair, doesn't apply to, like, the legendaries who have different odds, but it's still very good odds compared to a lot of other stuff that we're dealing with.
No, Gen 8 ruins the legendaries, don't worry. I'll get to that.
Yeah, I know. We will get to that later. But between Gen 7 and Gen 8, we have Pokemon Go, which, honestly, I kind of think contributed to this mess. Because technically, now... as we discussed before, Pokemon Go's chances of trying to find, your ability to encounter Pokemon in Pokemon Go versus the other games is vastly limited, so your odds should be increased. But your base shiny chances, no events, is over 1,000 times higher than the native 1 out of 4096, the already halved. It's over 1,000 times better than that. That's how good your chances are of finding a random non-event shiny. And, of course, once you get, like, community days and raid battles, your odds can go anywhere between 2% to 10%, which is...
But I give... Niantic also had the troubleshoot. Like, people who live out in the country, they don't encounter a whole lot versus people who live in the city.
That's true, yes.
So how do you make it fair to the people in the country area who can't encounter at the same rate people can out here?
And I agree. This is them... hitting the ground running, trying to figure out how to make this work. And to be fair, they didn't have to give us shinies at all. And the way that they figured it out, they're trying to do it where, like, you know, we can have, like, events where we can get people back into our game. And that does work. It works really well. Because normally in a game like this, people would have, like, crazy drop-off. They'd stop playing, lose interest. But, you know, even like me, I casually play that game at best. And if I hear all of a sudden, like, oh, there's a community day they're doing for, I don't know, Bagon, which I don't think happened. No, it did happen. All of a sudden I'll be like, oh, I'm interested. I'm gonna check that out. And it gets people back into the game, and that's cool.
The nice thing I like about Go's shiny thing too is Go's so much more just about collecting. So it's fun. I like the higher odds if it means I'm trying to collect them.
I agree.
Versus, like, there's battling in Go, but it's not like Smogon. It's not Smogon battling where you're like, oh, look at my shinies while I wipe the floor with you.
Now, early Pokemon Go was kind of a mess, and it did turn into like, yeah, well, there's a Dragonite on every corner, and I can't get into any of the gyms. But they have fixed that. They have done great in fixing that. Maybe a whole other discussion is talking about Pokemon Go, because there's so much to dissect there. But they also, and this other thing we've been pointing out earlier, Pokemon Go, as well as past Pokemon games, have been giving out guaranteed shiny events. So, as you kind of mentioned with the Ho-Oh, there's so many events now where you're just given this shiny. You're just given this one, given that one. And a recent one is a shiny Celebi. To tie in with the movie, they're just giving people shiny Celebis and all sorts of stuff. And honestly, that was my last shiny, and I'll probably talk about this later. Or we could discuss this now, because this was my last shiny that I shiny hunted. And after this point, I kind of thought, because I've had my daughter, there's a lot of stuff going on, I'm very busy, I cannot sit down and shiny hunt, but I thought, you know, I love Celebi. Like, it's easily probably one of my top 5 favorite Pokemon, and there's a story there, but I'm not going to get into it now. But, and actually I go into it in that video, but it's so important to me, and I finally got that thing after all that time, and I got it at crazy lucky odds. I was so excited. I got it in Crystal. And then they start giving it out later. And that did not, once again, like Ho-Oh, did not devalue it to me. If anything, I was like, oh, cool, now we can kind of have, like, one and go. You know, I'm going to have, you know, one here, too. And but the thing is, it still kind of feels bad, you know? Like, not that, like, I don't feel bad for doing the hunt. I feel like now everybody has this thing that I worked so hard for, and mine really isn't different, you know? And
I think the worst one you have is your shiny Mew.
Really? Well, oh my god, that was so freaking hard. That hunt.
They just gave that out recently with the Kanto ticket, a shiny Mew.
Yeah.
But once again, I fall under, okay, is that Niantic's fault? Or is that you-know-who coming in and going, hey, we're doing a promotion, put this in your game?
I know, and that's the thing. Like, shinies have become the new promotion. And that's what's really weird. Because before, we go back to, like, Gen, I'm going to say 4? Maybe that was, like, the start of when they were becoming promotions. Before that, shinies were still that mystical, do they even exist kind of thing? And now we have gotten to the point where shinies are, like, an event just to get people to play your game.
Let me put it like this. Do you remember, like, it was a glitch, but do you remember how excited you and I were at the prospect of monochrome Pokemon?
Oh my god, yes. Monochrome Pokemon.
It was a glitch, but the excitement of, okay, this is the new shiny.
Yes, exactly. No, here, let me preface that a bit. So this was happening in Gen 6. Right when Gen 6 came out, people were suddenly finding monochromatic Pokemon. I don't know if you can find it online anymore because it was patched immediately.
But it's so cool.
And that's the thing, they are completely grayscale. And the thing was, people were calculating their odds, and they honestly thought that they were 1 out of 8,192. So we thought, that's awesome. So you can retain the old chances. If you find it in this game, you can find an 8192 shiny and it looks like this. Or you can find the native one from this game, the 4096 or lower, and it looks like their alternate color palette. And I thought, you can transfer your other ones up and it'll look like the color. That would really suck. If I worked so hard for a color palette I loved and it turned monochromatic, so that would be different. But, if you hunted it in this and it was monochromatic, that'd be so amazing. No, it was just a graphical bug and they patched it out. But I still kind of wish, like I was saying before, that they had some sort of method to show what value the shinies were visually, because we've gotten to the point now where you can have a wormhole shiny that is a 36% chance find versus an 8192 crazy lucky catch. It went down to the wire. You had like 2 Pokeballs left and you managed to catch it and it was intense versus something you caught in, a wormhole. Or even, you got in Pokemon Go Community Day and you transferred it into your game,
Right. And we're about to talk about something next with Gen 8 that I think they kind of did try and do something like that, but it still does nowhere come close to work.
Right.
So let's talk about Gen 8.
Yeah, Gen 8. So still native, 4096, though they did something that I'm going to call a pity system. I'm not sure how else to describe it.
Oh, no, it's a pity system.
It's a pity system. Okay, so basically, the more times you encounter a particular species of Pokemon, the game is tracking this. And you can actually see it in your Pokedex. And the game's past had actually done something like this too, but not to this extent and not actually straight up affecting your odds. This will permanently affect your shiny odds for that species based on how many you have battled. And this gets really high. Like with your shiny charm, if you max this out and you find 500 of that species, you are randomly encountering at Friend Safari odds.
Now keep in mind too, you're not chaining.
You are not chaining. Yeah, this is just wild encountering of that Pokemon. So the more you fail, the more you don't find it, the game is actually trying to make sure that you do find it, which secretly, I like that because when I was shiny hunting for Ho-Oh, God, would I have done for that. I would have done anything for that.
I like it, but once again, it's falling under, and the thing we have to keep in mind is, yes, we know these games are technically made for a younger audience. That much is given.
And I get it. Encourage them to shiny hunt, and like if you're failing for a long time, you have an incentive to keep trying because you are getting better. But
but at the same time, that kind of falls under the participation trophy version for me, where it's like, okay, you're trying, but you're not getting better, but we'll give it to you anyway.
Right. And there's something like, I don't know, masochistically amazing about shiny hunts that go way over odds. Is that just our generation, Matt, who like watch those shiny hunts that go over 20k and you're like, oh my god, just give it to them already?
My favorite video on YouTube is still the guy in his shiny Snorlax. Or the guy who accidentally killed shiny Giratina.
Yeah. There's a lot of great ones.
Here's the thing. That's the other thing people don't realize is you spend all that time in the past generations and you finally find it and accidentally kill it, or it kills itself.
It's devastating.
Your heart sinks.
Yeah. My shiny Mewtwo I was counting its moves, and spoiler alert, Mewtwo got down to 1 or 2 moves left. He was going to struggle and kill himself, and I had to give in and use the Master Ball, because I was not going to let that happen. And yeah, every other case, I do not use Master Balls. It goes for... Shiny Hunters are insane. We're like, oh, so I found this shiny, but I got it... You know, like, I got a shiny Articuno, but I got it in the traded over Dive Ball. And, like, now it's rarer, right? Like, that's the thing. Like, shinies were trying to, like, elevate their value and, like, show it like a trophy, because it's a trophy Pokemon. But the more Game Freak adds in mechanics like this, I feel like they are, yes, they're incentivizing us to do it by destroying their value. So it's almost, it's like, it's backwards, you know?
It is.
It's backwards. I wonder if they did this both ways and actually made, like, retained an 8192 value. Say a monochrome Pokemon or something like that, or something along those lines.
That's why I was hoping monochrome was a thing, because I'm fine with, like, making an easier version of it.
Right.
And making shinies the easier and monochrome the harder, or vice versa. But right now, it's like, it's not worth the time, because like I said, you accidentally kill that shiny Beldum you found in 8-gen, oh well, I'll just run around 20 more times and find another one.
Right, or you couldn't capture it because, you know, or you couldn't capture that shiny Beldum because it was a capture rate 3, but hey, just find a new one. And the thing is, like, these odds in Gen 8, they actually keep getting better, and there's more methods. There's so many methods. There's actually a chaining mechanic on top of this, and it's not even requiring you to do anything Pokeradar-like. It's even easier. Basically, just kill the Pokemon and keep hunting and keep finding more to find another one. If you find something else, run away, kill the other one.
They introduced 2 different types of shinies. Ooh.
Right, and we need to talk about that. Basically, all they really did, it's called Square Shinies. Basically, your entrance animation is different. Now, hold on, before we make fun of it. If they did this to identify an 8192, or basically, or a full odds, because that would be unfair to people who...
That would be different,
That would be unfair.
Not the case.
That's not the case, no. But I'm saying, if that were to identify an 8192 or a 4096, honestly, I risk there was a second one to do an 8192 versus a 4096. But if you change up those entrance animations, and that's all it is, just different kinds of sparkles, and people can be like, oh, that shiny Ho-Oh is the 8192 from way back when versus the Wormhole shiny, you know, then all of a sudden, like, it's the same color palette. You didn't have to change anything, but...
I read online, and I kind of agree with this. I was on the subreddit, and someone brought up a good point where, say you had a Pokemon from a different generation, it kept that sparkle animation from that generation.
Oh, that would be awesome! I would love that!
Like, because then it would kind of make it feel better, because it's one of those, I brought this person all the way here with me.
Yeah, it's almost like you get to save that journey and, you know, kind of remember this unique one.
Right, and now, like, people were like, well, you can't do the pixel base. It's like, you can do the pixel base. Each one had unique sounds.
And even still, you can make a 3D version of that. It's not a big deal. It's just the sounds mostly. And, you know, and what's funny is the Gen 5 one used the potion sound in the shiny sparkle. Which would be a little weird. But still, I agree. They really, I feel like they got to do something to incentivize me as a player, because right now, even if I'm playing a brand new Pokemon game, honestly, I don't feel like shiny hunting anymore, and I wanted this video to kind of analyze what has changed over time. Why do I feel that way? And even at the end of this, I'm still not really positive. I kind of think I feel like Pokemon has kind of self-sabotaged the value of what these things were. They were kind of meant to be like a special hidden thing for players who go out of their way. And now it seems to be more of like incentive for you to keep playing, maybe, but mostly just as event fodder. And I don't know if I like that. Even if it's one of those, like, you know, I could still stumble across something, or I really like the color palette of some Pokemon, I still might, but honestly, I am just not really feeling it. Not even close to the same way, at least, that I did back in, say, Gen 4, or even 2, when it was just that legendary thing. But I don't know. What do you think, Matt?
I mean, I gave up shiny hunting because it's not worth it anymore.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't feel special. Like, a couple weeks ago, I got a shiny Gible in Pokemon Go, and Garchomp's my favorite Pokemon, but I just don't care.
Dude, that should have, like, lit you up. Like, Years ago,
I
you would have
just don't
freaked
care.
out. That's sad, though, you know, because
'Cause I'm
I do
looking
know
at it
that's one of your
I-
favorite Pokemon, and
I
you got a
hopped on
shiny
the-
of it, and it still doesn't do it for you.
Yeah, because I hopped on the Pokemon Go subreddit, and everyone's like, "Oh, look at all these shiny Gibbles I caught today."
Yeah.
It's like, okay, well,
Yeah.
I went
Yeah, I agree.
my special Gibble, but all right.
And maybe this is the internet age kind of ruining it for us, because now we can see everybody else having the same thing that we have, and maybe we thought that we were that special back then when we had our shiny Ho-Ohs and whatever in Gen 4, but now it's just a different beast altogether, and I don't know. So at the very least, we want to hear what you guys think about this. So you know, either if you are listening on podcast, you can hop over to YouTube, let us know down in the comments below. But yeah, it's a big topic, I think. Obviously, we went way, at least overtime for what we were planning on for these episodes. We're not entirely sure how long we want them to be, but we still want to make sure we cover the topic fully. And this is a big discussion, even though it seems stupid. This seems like it should be dumb. It should not matter to anybody. But you know what? For people like us who have been doing this for so long because we loved it, and something about that love dies because of what is happening inherently in the games and how the companies are treating this mechanic, that seems to be at heart for what is ruining at least my feel for the hunt. It's almost like the thrill's gone from the hunt, but I'm not sure anymore. Yeah. Anyway, thank you guys all for tuning into this episode of HITBOX. If you enjoy the show, you can help us keep it alive by supporting us on Patreon with the links in the show notes and in this video's description. For those of you who are on YouTube, remember to like the video and subscribe for more, and be sure to let us know what you thought of the show and what other topics you would like to hear us cover in the future. Special thanks to our editor, Rowan, our coordinator, Jaime, and our backup dancer / shady maintenance guy, Jeremy, and of course to all our amazing Patreon members. See ya!
Bye.